Picture this: a rainforest shielded by ancestral law, a redwood forest returned to tribal hands. The question is, can indigenous conservation truly shift our planet's fate?
And today's date is 2025-05-31. Let's start with what's actually happening on the ground. Indigenous communities aren't just involved in conservation, they're leading it. For instance, in Brazil, the Munduruku people secured legal recognition of their Sare Moibu territory. That's nearly 178,000 hectares of Amazon rainforest now protected from mining and logging. It's remarkable how years of activism, especially from leaders like Alessandra Corop Munduruku, actually led a mining company to step back entirely.
Right, and this isn't just a one-off. In Canada, the Lutsulke Dene First Nation joined with the federal government to create Thaidene Nene, a protected area bigger than some countries, over 26,000 square kilometers. What stands out is the co-management model. Instead of just government oversight, Indigenous and Crown governments share stewardship. Do you think this approach might catch on globally?
That's something to watch. The idea is spreading. In California, 10 tribal nations regained stewardship over 215 hectares of redwoods. They're not just holding the land, they're restoring it. Their 30-year plan brings together traditional land management and conservation science. Already, endangered species and old-growth trees are starting to recover. Does this challenge the view that conservation always needs outside experts?
It really does. The main difference is in approach. Indigenous methods focus on reciprocal relationships with the land, rather than strict restrictions. There's the Xingu seed network in the Amazon. They use something called muvuka, mixing dozens of native seeds and planting them together. It's restored over 1.8 million trees. That's actually more effective than typical monoculture reforestation. But why isn't this method more widely adopted?
Possibly it's about perspective. Conventional conservation can miss the value of place-based knowledge. In Ecuador, the Sarayaku people declared their forest as a living being, the Cossack Sacha Declaration. Now, that idea is part of global biodiversity discussions. And in Chile's Atacama Desert, indigenous groups negotiated water protections and profit sharing with a lithium mining company. What does that tell us about bringing together traditional values and economic interests?
It suggests indigenous communities can balance environmental and economic needs if they're actually included in decisions. They're also using new tools. For example, indigenous women are mapping using both oral history and geospatial data, sometimes called dream maps. That helps assert land rights and plan conservation. How much further could this blend of old and new go?
A lot depends on legal recognition. Many indigenous wins come after tough legal battles. Governments could do more, like making free, prior, and informed consent a legal standard. Ecuador's Waorani people, for example, used the courts to block oil drilling on their land. And in Bolivia, protests managed to stop a highway through a national park. Internationally, we have the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. But is that enough?
It's a step, but implementation varies. Indigenous peoples manage or have tenure over about a quarter of the world's land. These regions are often the richest in biodiversity. Studies show they're typically better conserved than state or privately managed land. Shouldn't global conservation focus more on indigenous-led models?
And not just at the policy level, but in actual practice, giving indigenous peoples real decision-making roles, like at UN biodiversity talks, makes a difference. Direct funding, like through the Cali Fund, allows communities to design their own projects. It's moving from consultation to actual leadership. With climate change and biodiversity loss accelerating, is there any alternative that's shown better results?
The data is clear. Indigenous leadership delivers results. Their stories are about justice, resilience, and action driven by community needs. As environmental crises deepen, these approaches are more important than ever. The real question is how quickly we can scale them up.
That sums it up. Indigenous communities are showing what's possible, combining ancient knowledge and modern tools, pursuing legal victories, restoring ecosystems. It's a model the rest of the world can learn from.
What we've seen today is that Indigenous victories aren't just local. They're reshaping conservation everywhere. From legal wins in the Amazon to restoration in California, this movement is global and it's growing.
Thanks for listening. Indigenous-led conservation isn't only about protecting nature. It's about rethinking how we care for the world.
Thank you for joining us. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. Try it now for free.